Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Zach.
And I'm Nathan.
And we're the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.
That's right. Nathan, my brother, how are you? How have you been?
I'm doing great, my brother, my good old brother from the same mother.
That's right.
It's been such a joy being on this podcast for the past however many years.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we've done this is our 302nd or 3rd episode. We've been putting them out a weekly basis, and we've never missed an episode, and we've never also have not recorded together. It's amazing.
It truly is a testament to brotherhood. So right. my good compatriot, my good bosom buddy, what is today's episode all about?
To level set, to pull people out of the kayfabe for a bit, we brought Nathan in because Seth is busy, and Nathan is a Metal Gear Solid expert.
A journeyman.
A Metal Gear Solid journeyman. That's good. Now, we have previously talked to another Metal Gear Solid journeyman. We had a gentleman by the name of Matt on. He has a podcast called Super Games Bros, and he also does a show called Box Trick. And Matt filled us in on Metal Gear way back in episode 85, but with a new game that has just come out, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, I thought it was more than appropriate to revisit the series. And Nathan is probably one of the people that I know that has the most knowledge about Metal Gear Solid out there. It made a lot of sense, I think, to bring Nathan in to have him regale us with some Metal Gear Solid information as we talk about this incredibly confusing franchise.
Thank you. I'm finally glad to sort of have this acclaim come to fruition. I mean, all of these wasted decades playing video games, and right here on this podcast, my knowledge of the plot and themes of the Metal Gear Solid series, directed by Hideo Kojima, is finally paying off. All of that, I'm gonna get the dividends and more. It's like winning the lottery, and the lottery in this case is the prize of sharing knowledge with others. I mean, when you think about it, it's a good metaphor, but don't think about it too hard.
Zero money, and you'll always have a place in the Classic Gaming Brother hearts and minds of our listeners after this episode, as you will become cemented in the long line of guests that we've had who we've locked in the studio room that is next to the room we record in.
This is pretty nice, though. I mean, I get to lick the water off of the dripping pipes. The wallpaper's pretty tasty, yeah, so.
That's not wallpaper. Those are the notes from our producer.
Well, you know what they say. No such thing as bad feedback, so.
Yeah, that is what producer Doug tells us. But before we get into the Metal Gear Solid mythos, as it were, Nathan, why don't you tell me what you've recently been playing that wasn't Metal Gear Solid or Metal Gear?
Well, my dearest brother, Zachary, I've been most recently playing a game called Tunic, which is available on the PlayStation. I think it's also maybe on PC. I'm not sure, but it's definitely on PlayStation.
Yeah.
I've really been enjoying it. How to describe it? It's very much in terms of its style and homage to RPGs like the original Legend of Zelda games, but also like it's got more modern RPG elements in it, like into like Dark Souls and stuff like that, at least in terms of a lot of the gameplay elements.
Yeah, Tunic's great.
Yeah, so you've played it?
Yes, I picked up a copy of Tunic from the publishers at PAX East a few years ago, and it is for the PC as well. It's on Steam, so I got a Steam code from them. Yeah, it's an amazing game. You liking it though?
Yeah, I really love it. I think for me, it's so far shaping up to be one of my favorite games. I'm about 15 hours into it. I really like the idea of the fact that this is a game that sort of takes one of the spirits that I like about Dark Souls, not my favorite one, but one of the more interesting aspects of it, where it's like, okay, you're given this RPG to play, and it's like, wait, how exactly do I play this again? And instead of having sort of that puzzle, figuring that out come from, like talking to people through like other people who've played Dark Souls or like the online community. In Tunic, it's like, okay, you're familiar with the aspects that you should expect in an RPG. Like, oh, I should be able to level up my character, and I should be able to have like a save point and things like this. But every aspect of the game is in some form a puzzle that you're meant to solve on your own. And I really enjoy that because it's got amazing visuals. I really like the very clean art style of it. Very cute. I like the fact that the combat feels really good, especially as someone who's like Dark Souls is very familiar. I can really get in and be like, okay, this is how the combat works. A lot easier to figure it out once you're like, oh, okay, I know what dodge roll iframes are. I know how to play like that. But also just having the whole structure of the game be one big interwoven puzzle that you slowly chip away at. Also, the story, from what I've surmised of it so far, is really compelling. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
That's awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun, and that is inspiring me to play some more Tunic. I haven't played it in a while. I played it a lot when I picked it up, and then I kind of fell off of it. Not that I didn't like it, I played too many games. No, I definitely want to revisit it. One of the things I liked though is that there's like some of the instructions that like you can find are written in the language of the game. So like you'll find like an instruction page, and it's just you can't read it. So you have to kind of, like you said, you have to kind of like determine what you're doing basically by experiencing it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, it definitely, I feel like, is in some ways in the spirit of playing a untranslated Japanese title where you go into an area, there's something on the ground, you go to pick it up, and you get a dialogue box with some indecipherable text and a question mark, and your options are yes or no. And it's like, well, I'm assuming this is asking if I want to pick up the object, and you click no, it brings you back out. You click yes, you pick up the object, and it's like, okay, all right, I can sort of get around understanding it. And the whole game is structured like that, where it allows you to figure out exactly how much you need to know in order to progress to the next sort of puzzle of the game.
Yeah, which is very cool, very innovative. Well, that's great. Well, I've been playing a game of a different caliber. I've been playing more of Dune Awakening, which I have talked a bit about on the podcast before, but I kind of went on a hiatus for just a moment because I was moving, and when you're moving, it's hard to constantly play a multiplayer game online. But I've been really still enjoying Dune Awakening, and for anyone who didn't hear me do the spiel about it, it's a alternate universe where Paul Atreides was never born, and you are tasked with going to the planet Arrakis as this new character, original character, Do Not Steal.
My name is Ball Abades.
My character is actually named Fraser, like Fraser Crane, and I made him like kind of look vaguely like Kelsey Grammer. I couldn't get it exactly like Kelsey Grammer, and I made him a mentat, so at least he is kind of like a psychologist. Yeah, so I've been really enjoying the game still. I feel like it sometimes falls into the trap of other multiplayer games where like the way I have to think about doing something is I kind of have to think about collecting certain resources because it is a survival game. It's a resource crafting game. So like, for example, I'm trying to get aluminum products. To build most of the aluminum products, you also need cobalt paste.
Oh man, that's the story of my life, dude. I go to like use the tinfoil. It's like, oh, where's my cobalt paste?
Right. And cobalt paste comes from a type of crystal that you can only mine in a certain area of Arrakis, which is nowhere near where you find the aluminum. So I have to like trek across the entire planet while avoiding sandworms to get all these resources. Also, your character can only carry X amount of items because, things take up weight and things take up volume.
I see the problem. You have to ride the sandworm, dude.
So I just learned how to craft thumpers, which are great because you can use thumpers to distract the worm if you want to do some harvesting of anything out in the field, like a spice field that just exploded, or there's this stuff called sand flour, which you can use to make silicon.
That is a question I have. So like, in like games where it's like, oh, you like run around all the time, but you can hold a button to like RP walk, as they say, just walk at normal speed. Is there a button for sand walking?
Sadly, no, but the game does encourage you not to like keep a rhythm on the sand. So if you were like driving for a very long time in your sand bike, you'll get a little like vibration warning. And if you are attracting the worm, it will turn red and the spikes will be like crazy. It almost looks like a sound wave that appears on the screen to indicate the vibrations you're causing. And if you're walking, if you notice the sound wave is catching up, you can kind of stop for a bit to settle it out. So it does encourage you to walk without rhythm, or else you will attract the worm. One of the cool things is I did get to experience one of the events that happens. It's a multiplayer game. They do events. And this was the Chom Salvage Rights event where
hell yeah.
A bunch of bandits had set up cannons and stolen Chom merchandise and stuff, and you had to raid their cannons and take the Chom stuff. They
stole the Navigator plushies.
Yeah. And then you bring the Chom stuff to a vendor who will give you some nice things. It was kind of a fun little thing to do. I like that kind of engagement. They did just do an update as well that added a bit more dynamic characters to encounter, such as like traders who will randomly show up in new locations. And also like I ran across just some NPCs that were like camping out in like still tents, like those water conserving tents that Fremen use. And they were like, oh, hey, how's it going? And I was like, I'm good. And they were like, can you do us a favor? Can you plant the flag of our people at at the top of this mountain. And I was like, sure. And they're like, great, we'll give you some Solari. And I was like, cool. So I guess I'm doing that for them.
I guess you're now committed to that faction.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I have not joined either Atreides or Harkonnen yet, though. You can join them. And right now I'm playing it neutral because I like to go to both Arakeen and Harko Village, and I don't want to ruin my reputation in either place.
A true centrist.
Yeah. But yeah, that's been Dune Awakening. It's a good time. I definitely think if people like games like Destiny and even like survival games like The Forest or something like that, they'd probably want to check it out. But to get into our episode, so like as we mentioned, we're going to be talking about some Metal Gear. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater just came out. Actually, I think like a few weeks ago, if I'm remembering correctly. And it is the remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, correct?
That's correct.
So we brought Nathan in to give us a little bit of information about Metal Gear. I have some questions ready for Nathan. He's been prepped in them. I probably won't throw any too many hardballs at him, but Nathan, getting right into it, what originally got you into Metal Gear, and what about the games really appealed to you?
Wait, that was the first. I thought the first question was going to be, can you please do a Solid Snake impression for 20 minutes?
Okay, can you do a Solid Snake impression for 45 minutes?
No problem, kid. You see, it's all about the nanomachines. All right, and that's about 45 minutes. Okay.
That's a good 45 minutes.
What was the question again?
Yeah, what got you originally into Metal Gear, like as a franchise, and what about the games initially appealed to you?
I initially started playing Metal Gear Solid 4 after being exposed to it by a friend. I was over at his house like when we were kids, and this is around the time that the game had come out, and that seemed to be the case for a lot of the games I played at that era, is that I'd go to my friend Alex's house and he'd be playing a game and be like, wow, that's cool, what is that? Sly Cooper? I want to play that. So I'd go out and rent a copy from Gamefly, and that's what happened with MGS4. I picked up a copy of MGS4, and man, I played through the whole thing. I had a great time. I had no idea what the was going on in the story. It was a complete wild ride, but in spite of the fact that I didn't really know who these characters were or what was happening in the grand scheme of the context of what they're doing, I had a great time playing it. It was one of those things where it's like, I don't understand what's happening, but I can tell that what is going on here is really compelling and has a lot of weight to it. I mean, talk about being thrown into the deep end of the pool. I actually, you know what? The guy who, when I went to get it from, I think I actually got a copy from GameStop, because I remember going to pick up a copy of this, and the guy at the cash register, I gave him the copy, and he's like, oh, MGS4, like, have you played any other games in the series? Like, no, not really, this is the first one I played. He's like, you sure you want to start with this one? This sort of like wraps up the story of like all of the other games that came before it. And I'm like, I mean, it's probably be fine. I've seen my friend play it. It seemed cool. And I was right. Damn it. Didn't matter. So what appeals to me, I guess what appealed to me about the game and what appeals to me now about the whole series is like a number of things. It's got such a unique identity to it, and you can really feel throughout the whole course of the games that they're all the brainchild of the singular director. So there's that sort of tonal cohesion that really like allows the game series to have a core identity to them. It's really interesting military sci-fi. The art direction is really good. I really enjoy the aesthetics of the game. The choreography of the characters, especially in the later games, is really interesting. The story runs pretty deep and is very compelling. And also it's got really interesting characters, really memorable characters, with the heart of the series, I would say.
Before we talk about some of those characters and what exactly Metal Gear is all about, I know you've recently been playing through all of the Metal Gear games. The Metal Gear Solid, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah.
What started this marathon? It sounds like a kind of a bonkers time and an interesting way to experience all these games.
Okay, all right, yeah. So the little bit of context is that in college, one night, my friends and I got extremely drunk, and we stumbled back to the dorm, and we're like, hey, let's play Blood Bloodborne. I think we were just drunk and just played through like a session of Bloodborne.
Yeah.
And then later on we're like, hey, that was really fun playing Bloodborne drunk. Let's make it into a drinking game. And so over the course of God knows how many years it took to finish that game, we'd meet like maybe, like during college we do it a few times, and then like out of college, like we would meet up every like month and a half or so to do a drinking game session of Bloodborne. And so after we finished that series, it's like, all right, okay, what's next? And of course, me and a number of my friends are big fans of Metal Gear Solid, and we're like, okay, that's it. We're doing the whole Metal Gear Solid series as a drinking game, and it's been an amazing experience so far. Let me tell you, that's one of the best decisions I've ever made personally. It's such a fun time. The rules for it are unique to each game, but the general premise is that there are rules that you have to drink during certain events that happen for gameplay, and also for certain keywords or events that happen based around the dialogue and like the cutscenes.
Right, yeah.
So one of the main through lines for all of those rules, for the gameplay, it's pretty much always the same, is that take a drink if you die, you drink if you are spotted, you drink for using a healing item like a ration.
Okay.
Or ramen noodles. And you drink. This isn't the case for all of the games, because some of the games don't have non-lethal capability, but for most of them, you have to take a drink if you kill someone, as opposed to subduing them with like tranquilizers or something like that. Including the bosses. You have to non-lethal the bosses. They count. For the dialogue, it varies a little bit more based on each game, based on sort of the themes and what is like what we remember being like recurring statements and stuff like that. But for almost all of the games, the word Metal Gear is, of course, a drink anytime you hear that. The only other one that I think is common throughout all of the games is you have to take a drink if a character repeats something that another character said, only they add a question mark at the end of it. That is a hallmark of Metal Gear Solid writing, especially Snake's dialogue. Someone will be like, you should inject yourself with nanomachines if you start to feel the effects of the psychic's abilities. And Snake will be like, nanomachines?
It looks like the DIA recently developed a new type of assassination weapon. An assassination weapon?
And, of course, opens up an opportunity for the first character to give a long exposition about how the nanomachine technology works and its history and so on and so forth. And we love the series for it. But, yeah, and so, like, each game will have, like, various other keywords that we throw in there. For Metal Gear Solid 4, we had, I think it was Patriots, we had system, and we had nanomachines. And let me tell you, some of those cutscenes in Metal Gear Solid 4 are very long, and some of them have a lot of exposition, and some of that exposition involves copious amounts of how the Patriots are using nanomachines in the Sons of the Patriots system to control everyone. And it's fucking deadly, man. It's deadly.
That sounds like a riot, and I can imagine it is a riot to experience the games that way. Now, have you been playing them, and we'll talk about this probably a bit later, if not sooner than later. Have you been playing them chronologically or release order?
We've been playing them mostly in release order, but we're doing a few tweaks to it. The order that we're doing is 1, 2, 3. I think we did 4, then Peace Walker, then 5, and then we're going to end with Metal Gear Rising.
Gotcha. Did you guys end up playing like the original Metal Gear or Solid Snake?
We did not. I sort of have veto power for this series, and I'm not super enraptured by 2D games, especially really old ones. No shade to anyone at this podcast who listens to it. I feel like I'm in the minority there. It's just sort of my personal preference. It just doesn't capture me as much as 3D games. My first system was a PlayStation 2, so that's sort of the era of graphics that I sort of was indoctrinated into.
Very fair, very fair. So you've alluded to, all these different terminologies, Patriots, nanomachines, all these different characters. What exactly is Metal Gear about? Who is Big Boss? Who's Solid Snake? Who's Ocelot? Who are the Patriots? What is this?
Oh man, dude, you're asking the simple questions with no simple answers. Let me tell you
that's what we do here at Classic Gaming HQ.
All right, honestly, so for the first part of that, what is Metal Gear Solid series about? This is something that I've thought about a lot and has been very difficult to come up with a straightforward answer. The main difficulty comes from the fact that the games have such a wide span. Like, they take place over the course, like, at least in terms of the timeline, from the 60s all the way to the 2010s. And so there's a lot of events that happen between them. So it's really difficult to find, like, a real through line. You could be tempted to say that, oh, well, the Metal Gears are what the series is all about. The mechs that have nuke launching capabilities, the Metal Gears, but it's not really entirely about them. They are important for a lot of the story, but it's not really the through line for all the games. Yeah. I think what is the real through line is the character Snake. He is what all of the games have in common, and what they're all really revolving around is his journey. Regardless of which version of Snake that is, it's all about him and the struggles that he goes through. But if I have to sort of identify like themes that are core to the series, I'd say a lot of it centers around the themes of nuclear deterrence, of systems of control, what characters are loyal to. I think really the commonalities for a lot of it is espionage, warfare, control, and existential threats. Yeah. But really, the star of the series are the characters and their relationship to each other. Like a lot of great stories, that's really what the heart of Metal Gear is about. And they're really interesting characters.
You've alluded to the fact that there's more than one Snake, for example. So there's Big Boss, obviously, who is Naked Snake, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. When we start to delve into, well, who are these characters and like exactly what's their origin? Like we start to go down a rabbit hole that's really, really deep and wide.
Hey, we got all night, buddy.
Okay. So let's try to zero in on this a little bit. Pick a character that you want to know the most about. Let's just do that.
Let's start with the big man himself. Tell me about Big Boss.
Okay. Do you want to know about Big Boss or Snake, like in general?
Naked Snake, John, Ishmael, however you want to call him.
Because that even bifurcates into two characters, so that's not a simple answer. But the origin in the series for Metal Gear Solid, like chronologically, is
after the end of World War II, the world was split into two, East and West. This marked the beginning of the era called the Cold War.
And so during the Cold War, like, I even started too far in. During World War II, there was a legendary soldier called the Boss. Not Big Boss, the Boss, who is a woman who is the mother of all special forces. She essentially started the trend of special forces units. And her protege was a man named John Metal Gear. I mean, John. No one. I don't think his last name is known, honestly. But his codename is Snake, specifically for Operation. Oh God, did it change between Operation Virtuous Mission and Operation the other one? Oh boy. Okay, the Boss had a protege by the codename of Snake. She was his mentor in warfare, in special forces. And so essentially what happened was Snake's mentor, the Boss, ended up through a series of events in Metal Gear Solid 3 during the 1960s in a whole fiasco that exacerbated nuclear tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. And she ends up essentially taking the fall for it and being branded as a traitor. But she did that willingly, sacrificing essentially herself and her legacy in order to cover for the United States government.
Gotcha.
And part of that process was her protege, Snake, had to kill her in order to solidify the peace between the US and the Soviet Union. And the United States rewards him for it, and Lyndon B. Johnson awards Snake the title Big Boss to surpass even the Boss.
Gotcha.
So he's now known as Big Boss, but the fact that he had to betray his mentor in order to fulfill his obligation to his country sort of tore him apart. And he very soon after left the United States military and went on to form his own private military corporation, a contractor called, oh God, he's had a number of them. The first one was MSF, Militaires Sans Frontières, Soldiers Without Borders.
It's like Doctors Without Borders, except they shoot things.
Yes. Don't worry. There is a disclaimer at the start of one of the games specifically saying that it's not related to Medicine Sans Frontières. Don't sue us.
That's funny.
But yeah, so Snake, well, now known as Big Boss, goes on to form a private military contractor. Sort of as things progress, he starts to lose his humanity as he delves further into both that business and sort of the fallout from what happened with the boss.
Okay.
Because the people that he was involved with that mission that ended up in the death of the boss, that core crew that he had that operation with were also really loyal to the boss. And they ended up sort of trying to start a new system in order to sort of fulfill the boss's essentially dying wish, which was to make the world whole. And how they interpreted that sort of wish led all of the people involved down like a really dark path, but it also created schisms between them. But before the schisms of those people that went to form the Patriots, there's also a character called Eva, a character called Ocelot, who is arguably the most important in the entire Metal Gear Solid series, and the commander of the mission that got the boss killed, Major Zero. They all sort of were trying to like develop this system, and part of that was Major Zero wanted to turn Big Boss into an icon, essentially, to sort of have people rally around. And he also wanted to essentially capture and propagate sort of the power that comes with having like a super soldier like Big Boss. And he did that by, without Big Boss's knowledge, taking his DNA and creating clones of him, like essentially giving birth to children who were his genetic copy. When Big Boss found out about that, that caused a schism between him and, Major Zero and the formation of this system known as the Patriots. And so that's when he went off to do his private military contractor business. And eventually, later on in life, he became a ruthless warmonger. His whole business model became going into areas of conflict, killing the adults there, and taking the children that were left and turning them into child soldiers, essentially as troops for this like vicious cycle. And so that ties into the events of the rest of the series, following one of the clones of Big Boss, known as Solid Snake. And so the rest of the series is sort of his journey in this world that's been created by this conflict.
And as you alluded to, there is a second Big Boss who is Venom Snake, who is the one from the Phantom Pain, correct?
Yeah, so so
that's Ahab.
So yeah, that's Ahab versus Ishmael. Okay, so trying to get this information across efficiently and effectively.
This is good stuff.
Okay, all right. So story-wise, what happens is that in the events of or leading up to Metal Gear Solid 5, which takes place in the 80s. So Big Boss has formed his private military contractor, and they're doing pretty good. And they've got all their fun stuff like soldiers and a base out in the middle of the ocean that's built on an oil rig and a giant bipedal robot that can launch nukes. They got it all. But they are betrayed, and their whole company is essentially destroyed, and Big Boss is severely wounded and ends up in a coma. And so he wakes from the coma, and all he knows is that people are trying to come after him to assassinate him. And it's quickly learned that the people that are trying to come after him are essentially the Patriots, are hands of the system that he and Major Zero and the others created back in the early 70s.
I got you. Okay.
That all happens, and he's helped out by this guy in bandages who calls himself Ishmael, and so they escape, and Big Boss recovers, and he goes on to rebuild his PMC, his private military contractor, essentially from scratch, making it almost exactly the same as it was before. However, this is a spoiler for Metal Gear Solid 5. It's revealed that the man who helped him out of the hospital was actually the real Big Boss the whole time. The character that you had been playing as for the entirety of Metal Gear Solid 5 was actually one of Big Boss's loyal soldiers who underwent a combination of both plastic surgery and I think a little bit of hypnosis and like brainwashing. I'm not sure about the specifics. I'm sorry, I didn't actually finish Metal Gear Solid 5. I'm sorry, the game isn't finished. What do you expect me to do? And so essentially now there are two big bosses. There was the original big boss, and there's this MSF soldier who now has essentially the appearance and like skill set and has now gone down the path that Big Boss had went down himself. So
Yeah.
there are two versions of Big Boss. The reason that this is true and there are two big bosses, from what I understand is speculated, which is probably true, is Kojima having a way to sort of explain the fact that in the original Metal Gear games, the 2D ones, in the first game, it culminates in you killing Big Boss, and this happens in like the 90s.
Yeah.
You kill Big Boss, and then in the second game, it culminates by you killing Big Boss.
Yes.
It's like, well, how did Snake kill Big Boss twice? Well, this explains it. There were actually two Big Bosses the whole time.
Yeah, I love it. If you go to the Metal Gear wiki, which I have just open right now in another tab, and you go to Punish Snake's page, it has his like picture from the Phantom Pain, the picture of what he looked like in Ground Zeroes, and then it just says MG, and if you click on it, it's just the sprite from the first Metal Gear game from 1987. It's so tiny.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like no detail. You can just tell it's a dude wearing military fatigues, but that's beautiful stuff, Nathan. Now, I know we could probably be here all day talking about characters. I just gotta know.
We will be. You can't escape. I may be locked in this room, but you're locked in this recording with me.
But I just gotta know, what's the deal with Ocelot? Like, I know that there's...
Man. You can't just what's the deal with Ocelot? What's going on with Ocelot? Like, just give me a quick, like, one-word summary of what's happening with Revolver Ocelot.
You set up the question because you said he's the most important character to the franchise.
Oh, I see. It's all my fault. I see. Some brother you are. Okay, so yeah, I will try to make this explanation as entertaining and as succinct as I can, because that's what we do here at Classic Gaming Brothers. We're all here for you, the listeners, and we respect you and your time and your attention span.
That's
and
right.
Your tolerance for entertainment. So, okay, the story, like, essentially explaining the story of Revolver Ocelot sort of involves, like, necessitates explaining the entirety of the story of the Metal Gear Solid series, but I will try to make this as simple as possible. I'm sorry, this is going to spoil a lot. Okay, so you all remember the character, the boss, the legendary super soldier, mother of all special forces. She was in a relationship with one of the people in her special forces unit, and they had a child together. This child was taken by essentially the United States shadow government and raised to be a supreme infiltrator, like a septuple agent. That child is Revolver Ocelot. You meet Revolver Ocelot chronologically in the series. He's first introduced in Metal Gear Solid 3, the game that takes place in I think it's the 60s.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 3 takes place in 64.
But yeah, he's first introduced as a GRU officer, a Russian. What's his rank? He's an officer in the Russian military. He's introduced in the series. What actually happens is that, okay, here we go. Snake, Naked Snake, the guy who would go on to become Big Boss, he is tasked with going into the jungles of Russia, the Russian rainforest. You all are familiar with that.
Yeah, of course.
In order to sort of make contact with an agent, a United States agent that sort of has important information that he needs to collect, essentially. Snake never really establishes contact with that agent. He's sort of interrupted by coming in contact with this other character, Eva. They sort of meet up and they are more or less attacked by Revolver Ocelot. Revolver Ocelot was actually the agent that Snake was supposed to meet up for. He was working with the United States government, but they don't really know that. So Snake and Ocelot have like a real, very platonic, no sexual tension sort of interaction between each other. And
so when he meows?
Well, that's before.
Okay.
Essentially, Snake and Ocelot have a fight, and Snake's a lot more experienced than Ocelot, and he essentially bests Ocelot and gives him some pointers, and this really makes an impression on Ocelot. One could say a very obsessive impression on Ocelot, who then sort of goes on to try to become essentially rivals with Snake. And so they have that sort of antagonistic frenemy relationship by the end of that game. Later on in the series, Ocelot sort of meets back up with Big Boss. They, together with other characters, sort of start the formation of the Patriots. And I think Ocelot is more or less still involved with them throughout the rest of the series, even if people don't really know it. But Ocelot is one of Big Boss's right-hand man as he builds up his private military contractor.
Yeah.
Metal Gear fans are going to have to forgive me here because there's a lot going on with him, and I think I've already lost a little bit of track of the plot here. It gets kind of confusing, and there's a lot that happens essentially off-screen with Ocelot in terms of what he's up to. But essentially, things happen, and then we get to the events of Metal Gear Solid and the rest of the series that involve Solid Snake, the clone of Big Boss. And Ocelot is now essentially a guy who is working with this group of terrorists who are demanding a bunch of resources, including their demands include the body of Big Boss. And at the start of the game, it's not really clear why, but it's sort of like Ocelot has become now an antagonist to Solid Snake. And as the series goes on, Ocelot is after all of the events of Metal Gear Solid 1, it's revealed that Ocelot was still a secret agent. He was working for the United States government, actually the shadow government, the Patriots, but he was embedded with that terrorist cell because the Patriots put him there. Please forgive me, this is Kojima's fault, not mine. I have to recount all of this in order for it to make sense. In Metal Gear Solid 1, the main antagonist, who's also part of the terrorist cell, is another clone of Big Boss called Liquid Snake, not Solid Snake, Liquid Snake, who's Snake's brother. Liquid Snake dies, and Revolver Ocelot loses an arm in his fight with Snake. In the next game, Revolver Ocelot shows up again, working for another terrorist cell, very similar to the first one, but he's having these weird fits where all of a sudden it starts to seem like he is being possessed by the spirit of the dead Liquid Snake.
Yeah.
And it's because he grafted his Liquid Snake's arm to his body because he was missing an arm, so he took Liquid Snake's arm and now is part of it. But apparently Liquid Snake's arm, the will of Liquid Snake was so powerful that it overtook the will of Revolver Ocelot.
I get it. Okay.
Okay, you think you get it, but you don't, Zach. You don't get it because it's not true. He's not actually being taken over by the will of Liquid Snake. What is actually happening... All right, I'm just going to cut to the chase here. This is taking too long. What the core of Ocelot is that he was initially an agent of the United States government, which later developed into the Patriots, the shadow government. But after he met Big Boss, he essentially fell in love with him, and so his motive, he was raised as a quadruple agent, so he knows he is an expert at subverting and infiltrating and disguising his motives. For the rest of the series, he essentially acts in a way that seems like he is working for the Patriots, but really his secret motive is always his loyalty to Big Boss. That was his driving motivator for the rest of the series, trying to help Big Boss, even after Big Boss supposedly died. The big reveal at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4 is that he wasn't being possessed by Liquid Snake's arm. He was actually just, through a series of nanomachines and self-hypnosis, fooling himself into thinking that he was Liquid in order to throw the Patriots off of his scent. But really, he set up a bunch of things in motion to destroy the Patriots, destroy the shadow government, controlling essentially the world at that point, in order to essentially free the world of the system and carry on Big Boss's will.
Got it.
And so a lot of all of the games involve Ocelot being there in some capacity, doing something, and at the end of most of them, it's revealed that, but actually you thought I was doing this, but really I was doing this the whole time. So yeah, that's Ocelot. I will say, Ocelot pretending to be Liquid Snake in Metal Gear Solid 4 is, in my opinion, the most entertaining villain that I have ever seen. The presence of that character, he just chews up all of the scenes that he's in. Like, for me, one of my favorite, essentially, cutscenes in video games ever is the scene in Metal Gear Solid 4, where all these characters have gathered in Europe and they're in the middle of this canal, and all like these United States soldiers and everyone have their guns pointed at him and his like elite group of agents, and he just declares that he is now in control of the system, and he holds up his two fingers in the shape of of a gun, and he says, "Behold, guns of the Patriots!
The system is mine! Your guns and your weapons are no longer your own. Behold, guns of the Patriots."
And he takes his finger gun, and he points at helicopters flying around him, and he just says bang, and he bucks his hand, and he turns to another one and says bang, and the helicopters are continuing to fly around, and all of a sudden they just start falling out of the sky, and then he takes his finger guns to his head and he goes bang! And all of a sudden, all of the soldiers in the entire city just start shaking, and they're grabbing their heads and they're throwing up on the ground, and he's laughing maniacally, and then you just start seeing him pointing his guns at other people, and there's a muzzle flash reflected on his fingers, and it's revealed that the soldiers all around him are shooting where he's pointing, and he's just mowing everyone down. It's extremely cinematic. He's an extremely fun character, very over the top, and I love it.
I think, though, you've alluded to some of these characters having some interesting abilities, just like the idea that even the thought of a character's will being a possibility until it's revealed it's not, sort of deal. There seems to be characters who have otherworldly abilities, is what I'm saying. Psycho Mantis, for example, in Metal Gear Solid, is psychic. He can read your memory card. There's that character in MGS5 who I think has like fire abilities.
The Man on Fire.
Yeah, or there's Quiet, who I think is a plant. Like, not like planted by the military. Like, I think she's a plant. Like,
listen, in the words of Kojima, if you don't like her character design, just play the story, and her story will make you regret your words and actions. Let me tell you.
So where exactly is the line drawn between fantasy, sci-fi, military fiction with Metal Gear Solid?
There is no line. Yeah, there really is no solid line. The series is mostly military sci-fi. As a quick side note, it is pretty funny. There's a infamous line in the start of Metal Gear Solid 1 where Snake is getting his briefing on the mission, and one of his support members is over the radio talking to him about the new communication device that he's been given, and she specifies, it's really neat tech. It was all made using currently existing technology. And you're like, what do you mean it was made using currently existing technology? But honestly, given the amount of weird sci-fi shit in Metal Gear Solid, having to specify that the technology he has is currently existing is definitely not out of line for the series. So there's a lot of science fiction elements in it. There's a lot, like, that's the core of what happens in Metal Gear Solid. All of the games have some sort of supernatural elements to them, some more than others, and some of the supernatural elements from games early in the series sort of get retconned in a way by Metal Gear Solid 4. Specifically, a lot of the supernatural powers that these people had were just really abilities enabled by nanomachines. I'm not really sure how the nanomachines allowed Vamp to walk on water. I'm not really sure what nanobots in his bloodstream would enable him to do that, but you know, it's fine. But one thing is definitely for sure, Psycho Mantis is just straight up has psychic abilities. That's always true. He's just a psychokinetic.
You've alluded to it already. Metal Gear has a pretty complex history. The games go back as far as 1987, with the original being Metal Gear for the MSX, later ported to the Famicom. And I know you said that you personally family aren't super big into the old games. What would you say, though, is the best way to play the series if someone wants that full experience?
That honestly depends on what your gaming preference is. The general answer I would give is to play them in release order, starting with Metal Gear Solid. The story will unfold naturally from that method, as opposed to trying to do it chronologically. I think playing it chronologically could be interesting. Again, the games are fun without context, but I think doing it in release order will definitely give you more out of it.
Yeah.
If you're an old school gamer or just like retro games, you can definitely play Metal Gear 1 and 2 before you play the rest of the series, Metal Gear Solid 1 and so on. That will give you the complete context for starting the rest of the series. If you start with Metal Gear 1 and 2, you'll have all of the context. If you need modern graphics to enjoy playing games, I mean, I get you, don't worry. I would say start with Metal Gear Solid 5.
Okay.
That'd be where I'd start with, because the graphics are definitely the best in the series, with maybe the exception of Delta, but the gameplay and the flow of gameplay has really been refined in that game. It's an immersive sim type game, and it's just really fun to play. There's so many like little things in the game. Kojima loves playing around with the fact that the medium is a video game, and will do all sorts of tricks and stuff like that with it. Like, like if you do this certain thing with your saves, or you set your system time in this certain way, things will happen. But even down to the immersive sim level, it's like, I'm like extracting this like shipping container full of like materials back to my base. Like, you go up to it and you can put a beacon on it that a helicopter will come and collect it. And it's like, well, if I climb up on it and stand on it when the helicopter comes and gets it, will I go back to the base? And sure enough, if you stand on it, the helicopter will come, you'll get whisked away, and there'll be a loading screen, and you'll be back at the mother base. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's really neat.
And just for anyone keeping track at home, in terms of the chronology of Metal Gear, the games in chronological order are 1964 Snake Eater / Delta, 1974 Peace Walker, 1975 Ground Zeroes, 1984 The Phantom Pain, 1995 Metal Gear, 1999 Solid Snake, 2005 Metal Gear Solid, or the Twin Snakes, I guess if you want to play the GameCube remake, 2007 and /2009 Sons of Liberty, and 2014 Guns of the Patriot. That's not the years they came out, those are the years they're set. So that's the chronology of Metal Gear for anyone who does want to play it for some reason in chronological order, which I guess if you do like nicer graphics, Delta is out now, so you could experience at least the first game in chronological order in the best graphics possible. Now, kind of I think a neat fact about Metal Gear, and I don't know if you know this, Nathan, is that the only reason Hideo Kojima ended up making Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake for the MSX was because Konami made a very strange NES exclusive. It was only released in North America and Europe, Snake's Revenge, and released that completely without Kojima's involvement. So I think out of spite, he made Metal Gear 2. Do you think if Konami didn't make Snake's Revenge, we would have gotten any of the other Metal Gear games? As in, do you think Kojima had a larger plan from the beginning?
I lied. I don't know everything. My understanding of this subject isn't something that I have like a lot of knowledge in, but from what I do understand, from what I've heard, every game in the Metal Gear series was intended to be the last game in the series. Some of that may have been like posturing for more money on Kojima's end, maybe. At least depending on some games. But from what I understand, the games were made, each game was made with the intention of being like, okay, this game, it ends the series. Which is definitely apparent in games like Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 4. Metal Gear Solid 4, because it definitely brings to a close almost all of the plot lines that are introduced previously. And Metal Gear 2, because it ends in such a surrealist way that there'd be no good way to make sequels from what happened during that ending, which is why the next game in the series was not chronologically after Metal Gear Solid 2. It was Metal Gear Solid 3 that took place at the beginning of the series, because where do they go after everything that you've experienced may or may not have been real in Metal Gear Solid 2? So, the answer is, what would Kojima be doing now? He would probably be doing his own, creative thing. I mean, he made other game series, previously, he made the Snatcher series, he made Police Knots. Like, he's done original IP and stuff like that. I mean, he's got his new Death Stranding series now, so he would definitely be making some other game. Unless, of course, he left the game industry after that. If he decided to leave games, he probably would have tried to get into directing movies. That man's bodies, I think in his own words, are 70% movies, so.
Yeah, I do like his movie reviews. I think they're very good. Of all of the Metal Gear games, and there's a lot, there was a lot of games released in the Metal Gear series, which are canon. And of those canon games, which do you think should get the Delta treatment?
This is another subject that I'm not 100% knowledgeable in. I don't know the exact real true answer, but my understanding is that all of the games are canon except for Portable Ops and Snake's Revenge. I'm not entirely sure about Metal Gear Acid, which is a deck building game, or Twin Snakes, which is the Metal Gear Solid 1 remake for the GameCube.
What about Survive?
What? Did you say something?
Oh, is it just static to you?
I'm just hearing noise. No, yeah, I really don't think Metal Gear Survive is canon, but honestly, it could be. Like, it doesn't really detract from the series at all. It's sort of like, it's just its own complete, like, spin-off thing where soldiers from MSF get TP'd into, like, another dimension they're trying to get back, so it's like, whatever, it's its own, like, bottle episode.
All right, fair enough. Of the games, I guess, that you've played, of the games you've experienced, which would you like to see get the full remake?
For the full remake, it's interesting. I think they already did it for me in terms of Metal Gear Solid 3 having a remake. The gameplay on that is like when comparing the specifically sort of the like locomotion in that to something like a modern game like Metal Gear Solid 5, it's like, oh man, I wish I had a more granular level of control of how I like interact with this character. And also the like art direction of like having it sort of be like sepia and sort of like a lot of sort of bloom to sort of emulate a sort of like old film-ish feel to it definitely was my least favorite in terms of the art direction for the series. But it's really difficult to answer because, at least in terms of art style, all of the games I feel like are really well directed in that they are directed around the limitation of the graphics. And that's especially apparent in Metal Gear Solid 1, where it's like, oh, Snake's face is like 20 pixels, if that. All these environments are like, you're looking at it, it's like, oh, okay, this is like it's almost a light bright level of detail that I'm getting from these textures and what's shown on screen. Again, coming from someone who mostly grew up on the PS2. But it's designed around that level of fidelity, and the art direction really shines through in spite of that sort of really low fidelity, like really highly pixelated presentation. Like it doesn't matter. All the environments, all the characters, the models, they're all built around that to sort of like convey the important and visually interesting aspects of it. So maybe for an existing game, I would say Peace Walker, you can just remake that for like, instead of having it be like limited by PSP hardware and stuff like that, is, you know, retweak the gameplay, make it a little bit more fun, at least more in depth for like single player. A friend was playing it recently and he told me that, yeah, this game is a lot more engaging when you actually have like online co-op with people that you can play with. Like the bosses are definitely designed around that, but honestly the gameplay is a little bit dry in Peace Walker, and the fidelity is it's not great. I think the visual style in Peace Walker is, I think, really underwhelming. So I would have a remake of that game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess it wasn't a remake, but there was like an HD version that was included in the HD collection for PS3. But I feel like looking at Peace Walker and what I know about Peace Walker, it makes a lot of sense if they just like remade that game for like in the Fox engine or something like that. Like,
oh man,
just, yeah.
Playing Peace Walker is where we're at right now in the Metal Gear drinking game, and man, I'm like losing it every time. There's a specific cutscene that plays when you're about to fight a boss, and it's like really short. It's just a really short cinematic of like, oh, the boss is here, and then it zooms into Snake's face as he's got his gun up in a stance ready to fight. But it just, the character models in that game, they blink, but there's no eye movement animation. So the camera just zooms in onto this dead-eyed stare of Big Boss, and it's like, oh man, could use a little bit more life in those eyes.
Yeah. No, that is painful. I guess alluding to Kojima as a director with these games, if he were to ever get back in good graces with Konami, maybe Konami says sorry and he forgives them.
They send a Kojima a candygram or something.
Yeah, they send him a candygram and they say, we need you back. We're going to make a Metal Gear game that's not Survive. We want a game that's like actually a new Metal Gear game. And he was to make it. What would you want out of it? What would be like the perfect new Metal Gear game that we haven't gotten yet? What would you want to see?
So this is actually something that I've had a thought on for a while. In terms of story, what I would want is the story to take place during the formation of the Patriots.
Okay.
That sort of era of Big Boss's life is communicated by Eva in Metal Gear Solid 4. She talks about the fact that after the events of Metal Gear Solid 3, and she was, spoilers, an agent for the Chinese the whole time. She ends up in trouble in Hanoi. And Big Boss comes to rescue her, and then after that, Major Zero and Revolver Ocelot and Siget, Paramedic, and Big Boss, they start the formation of the Patriots, and then the Les Enfants Terribles cloning project happens that causes the schism between Big Boss and Major Zero and sort of changes the direction of the Patriots and all that stuff. As described just from the exposition that's in Metal Gear Solid 4, it sounds really compelling, and it sounds like the perfect story beats for like a really interesting game. I feel like it would fill in a lot of gaps in the game story. That would be great if there was a game that took place for those events. In terms of gameplay, I really do think that Metal Gear Solid 5 really was the zenith of gameplay design for the Metal Gear Solid series.
Yeah.
The fluidity and the motion and stuff like that in terms of how you control Big Boss, and a lot of the systems for like mission select and like how you use equipment and stuff like that really worked super well. The whole open-ended approach to doing missions, I think, worked really well. So you just have that sort of style of gameplay. It doesn't need to be open worlds. I was talking to a friend about this. He was the opinion that Metal Gear Solid 5 didn't really need to be open world. It's not really, the gameplay isn't really structured in a way that necessitates having all these different areas that you do missions in together. It's like you go to one area and you do the mission in the area and then you leave. Not really like you're going between a lot of different areas.
Right.
Have the classic tried and true Kojima sprinkling his magic in there with the amazing dialogue, the spectacular cutscenes. We have the game, of course. You got to have the amazing visual, artistic representation for Metal Gear Solid. I mean, that sort of, I feel like, almost comes with the territory. It's like, oh yeah, the game is going to look good, and the story is going to be really interesting, and the dialogue is going to be really entertaining, and a lot of over-the-top fun stuff is going to happen. I wouldn't say it writes itself, but Kojima would, I feel like, have a really easy time of writing it at this point. So that's what I would want. Give us the formation of the Patriots. Please, Konami, just kiss and make up, please.
Before we close off this episode, which has been a great episode in terms of you really, I think, giving our listeners what they asked for, which was they want to know all about Metal Gear Solid, every last detail possible.
Remember, dear listeners, I do this all for you.
That's right. Do you think Solid Snake is canonically part of Fortnite? So, like, do you think, like, his appearance in Fortnite is canon to Metal Gear Solid?
I think, see, that's a tough one, because I'm trying to remember which version of it's Solid Snake in Fortnite. Raiden is also in Fortnite as well.
So it is Solid Snake in Fortnite, but it's based on his Smash Brothers appearance, and the Smash Brothers appearance is technically a combination of Liquid and Solid.
It is absolutely not the Smash Brothers appearance, because Snake has no ass in Fortnite.
Oh, you're right.
His cheeks were nerfed again. I would say that, you know what this is? It is one of Major Zero's propaganda campaigns.
I got you. Okay.
How that works chronologically, I'm not entirely sure, but this is the sort of thing that Major Zero did, where it's like, I'm going to turn Snake into an icon. And what larger icon could you possibly have than a skin in Fortnite.
Right, where you get to fight with Peter Griffin.
And you got to watch an Ariana Grande concert.
What a series. Gosh, Nathan, I'm sure we could keep going.
We can. And we will. We've got another 8 hours worth of story to cover for the first half of Metal Gear Solid 1. So.
That's right. And we haven't even touched on, Liquid Ocelot. We haven't even touched on Raiden. We haven't even touched on, Senator Armstrong or any of the other beautiful characters in this.
There's been absolutely no mention of Metal Gear Mark II, or is it 3? Oh, right. 2. It's both 2 and 3.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned the fact that there are, in fact, mechs in this game.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the
Metal
Metal Gears. I mentioned Metal Gears once as a concept.
Yeah, I mean, we there's so many more characters to talk about, and I'm sure we'll have you back on again. But before we close off this episode, do you have any last-minute thoughts on Metal Gear Solid?
Closing thoughts on Metal Gear Solid. I think Metal Gear Solid is a truly unique game series in that it's managed to keep its spirit over the course of pretty much all of its games. That what makes it so special and entertaining and endearing stays true throughout all of the games. Some games are a little bit more Metal Gear than others, but they're all quintessentially Metal Gear, and that alone itself is, I think, really special. But even like going through most recently playing these games now, well, as I go through this drinking game, it still reinforces that the themes of Metal Gear Solid are still so relevant and so interesting. It feels like the series, it might not be timeless, but its time certainly isn't over yet. There's still a lot to take away from Metal Gear Solid, and I definitely think it's a series a lot of people, I wouldn't say everyone, because I mean, I don't know what your tastes are, but I feel like it's at least worth giving a try. Look something up about Metal Gear Solid. Watch a cutscene. Just type in Alaskan ear pulling competition Metal Gear Solid into YouTube. Just do that, and just go from there.
Fantastic. Again, thank you, Nathan. And with that, we'll get into our now retro rewind, where we'll talk about some of the retro games we've been playing. So Nathan, what's a retro game that you've been playing recently?
Let's see here. A retro game that I've been playing recently is actually Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal. That's the second one in the series. One of my friends is a fan of the series, and I was looking for something light to play, so I'm like, you know what? I'm a fan of the Sly Cooper series. Ratchet and Clank is a contemporary of that series. A similar sort of spirit of PS2, fun action-adventure quasi-platformer game. I'll pick that up and give it a shot. I did start with 2 because I'm like, this is a series with a lot of games in it. If, after the first game, I'm sure they were able to refine a number of elements in it. So I'll start with 2. If I really like it, I'll just go back and do the rest of the series. But I have been enjoying it so far. I feel like based on what I can tell, I'm probably 80% of the way finished with it. I enjoy a lot of aspects of it. Again, I'm sort of coming at it, comparing it to, I guess, Sly Cooper for me, just because of sort of the era and system that it's on. And again, the sort of vibe, it's in terms of like, I want a game like Sly Cooper. That's one of my favorite series. So for a comparison to that, I would say the gameplay is a lot more varied. I really enjoy the fact there's so many interesting game modes in Ratchet and Clank. It's like you go to this location, there's the core gameplay of running around and shooting like robots or enemies with like a diverse set of interesting sci-fi weapons and stuff like that. But you'll go to an area and be like, oh, it's now the hoverbike race area, or oh, hey, it's the like pilot a mech and like do like a mech robot fighting competition on this like small asteroid sized planet, or like, hey, go to this arena and do like a gladiator style fight. It's just there's a lot of really interesting, fun gameplay elements to it. In terms of the story and the characters, I like the setting. I think it's fun. It's like a very cartoonish setting, but the story itself is so thinly threaded together, it might as well not be there, in my opinion. It's like, oh, there's a short, maybe like 45-second cutscene that happens about like what is happening in the story. You go to this planet, you go through the area, you do a couple missions, then you unlock another like 45-second cutscene about what's happening next, and then you're spirited away to the next location. It's fine. It's like it's very lighthearted and like it's entertaining enough. There's some good gags in there, but it's like I don't really get a lot from the plot or the characters' interaction. That's something that I feel like maybe that'll be more fleshed out in the rest of the series. Maybe it was something that was even better in the first game. But my preference is still with Sly on that one. Still can't beat those characters.
You're a big fan of the Sly Cooper game, so maybe if Seth and I ever do an episode of Sly Cooper, maybe we'll bring you back to have your thoughts on that, because I'm sure we can do an even longer episode.
I'll be happy to tell you to jump in at the circle button.
Well, recently I've been playing a game that actually Seth was playing recently, but not as a retro game. It was one of his recently plays. That's Ravenloft Stone Prophet, a 1995 MS-DOS game developed by Dreamforge Entertainment and published by Strategic Simulations Incorporated. And it's a game set in the Ravenloft campaign setting of Dungeons and Dragons. It's not in the Barovia setting, which is where like Strahd's possession and Strahd von Zordovich, the vampire, is set. It is in Hardakier, which is a desert setting. Seth and I have already talked a lot about Stone Prophet before. We did a whole episode on SSI. Actually, our episode 300 was a revised version. So that's what got me into wanting to play it again. And I lucked out because Good Old Games gave me a copy for free just randomly, just recently. I got like a random code. Yeah, it's a fun game. It's in a kind of a first-person perspective, though it's using that. It's not a really great first-person perspective. It's like very, very much like they were using as the best technology at the time of 1995. It's barely Doom levels, but I was playing as an elf and a dwarf, and I got my butt kicked by some vultures that attacked me. So it's a game that it's a game I'm not very good at, as I've remembered, but it's been fun to replay, and I'm looking to play more of Ravenloft Stone Prophet. I also got Strahd's Possession with the same GOG code, which is the version of the game set in Barovia with Strahd von Zordovich, so maybe I'll play that game next. With that being said, though, Nathan, I want to thank you very much for being on our show and for talking to us about Metal Gear Solid, as every episode. Now, if anyone's interested in finding you...
What's my home address?
No, I know that you have a YouTube channel. Is that something you want to promote?
I can. If you're a fan of Brick Films, that is exclusively what's on my channel. Not to brag, but one of my videos has almost 500,000 views. Ooh. So, kind of big time. But that was made like 12 years ago at this point.
Okay.
So, you peak early, but you ride those royalties off into the sunset.
Right.
All that YouTube AdSense sitting pretty. But yeah, if you're a fan of Brick Films, I've got some ones on there that I feel like are entertaining. I did one for our high school promotion for our high school TV station.
Yeah.
On there. So you can find me at TimeFlux1089. That's all one word. With the numbers, the Arabic numerals on YouTube.
Awesome. I will. I'll drop Nathan's link to his YouTube channel in the description below. You can also find him on this podcast. If you go to our BioShock episode, he is the voice of Atlas, and he's done some other voice work for us, of course. So with that, Nathan, I'm going to get into my little spiel where I tell everyone that if they have any memories of playing Metal Gear Solid, any of those games, let us know by emailing us at classicgamingbrothers.com. We're available wherever podcasts can be found, be it Podbean, iTunes, or iHeartRadio. We're available on social media. Look us up, Classic Gaming Brothers or CG Brothers Pod. We're available on YouTube or Twitch, Classic Gaming Brothers. Look us up there. And we're, of course, available on our website, www.classicgamingbrothers.com. Nathan, am I forgetting anything?
You're only forgetting to not play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Zach. And we've been the Classic Gaming Brothers. That's right.